What's a creepy fact you wish you never learned? Commented this before, but if you have abdominal surgery, and the surgeon needs your intestines out of the way, they don't try to get them back in exactly as they were. They can put them in pretty much any old way, and they sort themselves out. Then freaked out even more, when someone else commented, that you can quite often feel them, wriggling themselves back into position. Chainsaw was invented, by two doctors to assist in childbirth. Sawing through pelvic bone, gives a mother and the baby, some chance of survival, if the baby is too big. Yay! I had to have a C-section, when our daughter was born, and heard one doctor say to the other doctor, "Pass me the uterus, I'm gonna clean it." Still don't know, whether my uterus was actually lifted out, still don't want to know. Update: I am, thankfully, not as squeamish as my post may have made me look. When I heard that sentence, I immediately thought, wow, if I were more squeamish, I would probably be horrified right now or crying. I know that people working in the medical field consider this normal, and that's okay. Stuff like this becomes normal when you have to deal with it every day. Just felt they could have said that less loudly, or signaled to their colleague, as not everyone wants to know that. My ex had our baby via C-section, and I watched. One of the more disturbing parts of it was her uterus laying on her chest, while two interns picked pieces of placenta off of it, as they were discussing where they were going to go get lunch. Ascaris worms are a type of large, parasitic roundworm that make their home in the human digestive tract. They are endemic in many parts of the world. I used to work at a hospital, where we took a lot of patients from very poor and remote places, especially Central America, where roundworm infection is very common. When you put those patients under for surgery, the anesthesia causes their blood to become slightly alkaline, which the worms hate. So, after a few minutes, they will start coming out of every orifice in the body. Nose, mouth, rectum. And I'm talking full-sized worms, that look just like earthworms. It is no cap, one of the grossest things you can imagine. You give those patients a drug called bendazole, they poop dead worms for 3 days, and then they're fine. Dead bodies moan and grunt when you move them. I was a paramedic and firefighter for 21 years, I was around a lot of dead people. My dog recently passed away, so I had to pick him up and hold him on the way to the vet. I had to keep reminding myself that the breathing I heard was just me pushing the air out of his lungs. Edit: I didn't expect this to blow up as much as it did. First, I want to thank everyone for the condolences, and I share my condolences with everyone else who has recently lost their furry companions. I also want to take this soapbox, for a little bit, to talk about death, because we, as a society, don't discuss it enough. Because we don't talk or think about it, not a lot of people are prepared when it happens. The truth is, that everyone you ever knew, every pet you ever had, will someday die. Accepting this fact makes it easier to deal with. There is nothing I can do for Luigi now that he has passed away, other than to live my life as I need to, and remember him fondly forever. Obviously, everyone grieves differently, but I hope to share my perspective with hopes that it helps one person to find a way to accept the death of a loved one. Not so creepy, but yesterday someone posted about the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion. Some astronauts survived the explosion till they hit the ocean. Very sad to learn that. NASA's lead investigator, Robert Overmyer, concluded most, if not all, of the crew were alive and possibly conscious during the entire descent until impact with the ocean. After the investigation, Overmyer stated, "I not only flew with Commander Dick Scobie, we owned a plane together, and I know Scob did everything he could to save his crew. Scob fought for any and every edge to survive. He flew that ship without wings, all the way down." Dolphins are known to be quite intelligent, but they can also be cruel. In some cases, they've been documented killing baby dolphins of other pods, seemingly for fun. As a scuba instructor, I do not hesitate to correct people when they go, "Ah, sharks." I inform them of the incredibly low frequency of shark attacks, and remind them that dolphins are the Brock Turners of the sea. In that they are arists. Like Brock Turner, the arist. Nurse here. I learned that some people will use any hole in a sexual way, including a surgical hole in the stomach, to collect poop into a bag, a colostomy. Additionally, some folks with these kinds of holes will prostitute themselves out for use of that hole. How do we know? They come in with infections in these holes and own up to the behavior. I also learned this sexual act is called a Philly sidecar. Some people are born with a malformed mass of veins in their brain, called an AVM, and they have no idea, unless it's seen on a CT or MRI. Then one day, it can burst without warning, and that happy healthy person can die, suffer brain damage, paralysis, etc. No warning. This happened to my 22-year-old niece yesterday. She is in a coma now. It's heartbreaking. This happened to a buddy of mine. He was driving down the road, and pulled over to call EMS, after he realized, he had no idea who he was, or where he was going. Luckily they got him to a major hospital, which was able to perform neurosurgery, and fix it. A non-zero number of farmers go missing yearly from pigs. They will eat just about anything. Had a friend who raised pigs. Got knocked down, and almost gutted by his pet. And once it started, it just kept coming for him. Luckily, someone heard him, and was able to help. The wounds were nasty, and he had a long recovery. And the pig skull is now mounted on his wall. As a kid, 2 of my brothers and my cousin and I were in the hayloft on my grandparents' farm. My cousin pushed me out, and into the pig pen. I was accosted by the pigs in seconds. I screamed, I was small, and they kept crowding me, and grunting. My grandmother heard me, charged across the way, grabbed me by the shirt, and got me out of there. I do not like pigs, don't understand why people want them as pets. The president of Argentina and his wife kept Eva Perón's dead body, just chilling at the breakfast table. There is so much more. First off, after Perón died, there was such an outcry during the funeral procession, that 8 people were crushed to death by the throbbing crowds, and thousands were injured and hospitalized. The original plan was to embalm her and put her in a memorial that was supposed to rival the Taj Mahal. While it was being built, she was kept at home by Perón, propped up at the dinner table, etc. Eventually, she was moved to her old office building, and they kept her in her office on semi-public display there. Then a coup forced Perón into exile, and he didn't have time to grab her body. She was put into private storage for over a decade, where a guard discovered her, and apparently, in solitude, began to develop a relationship with her, where they talked and had meals together. She was finally found in Italy, but remained there for many years, until a terrorist group assassinated and kidnapped another Argentinian dictator, and then traded that body for Perón's. Sometimes, when you have a sharp pain in your chest, like a lung area, when breathing in, it could be there's not enough fluid around the lung, and it got stuck to a rib, or your diaphragm isn't in the correct place. Wait, I've been getting that, and no one knows what it is. It feels like a heart cramp, and I have to literally freeze my whole body, because it feels like a sharp stabbing pain. Is it the one where you can only breathe shallow, cause the sharp pain with every breath, but if you inhale once quickly and deeply, there is a super sharp pain, but then it is gone? In the meteor apocalypse movies, it usually starts by some random research team discovering the meteor by accident, then figuring out it's headed for Earth. That's pretty much what we have to hope for. Those sons of bitches are fast. Like faster than you can imagine. In movies, it's this huge ball of fire that tears through the atmosphere in some cinematic masterpiece that allows the people below to see how F they are. That's not true in real life. In real life it goes from the edge of our atmosphere to the Earth in less than a second. It hits the Earth so hard, it'll vaporizes the ground it touches, and itself. Hitting with such force that the ground moves like you threw a boulder into a lake. Waves of Earth become fluid, and destroy everything in a massive flux of destruction. But what's really scary is that it's cold. It's cold, until it hits some type atmosphere from a planet or space body. Because it's cold, it's hard to detect, with just pointing instruments into space. Unless we are specifically looking for it, we won't see it. We won't know that we're about to all die. We won't know that a meteor is about to hit us, until we see a literal tsunami of Earth outside our window about to kill us. That's why movies have people discovering it by accident. Because the chances of us finding it on purpose are not good. Add on, this has gotten a bunch of attention, and I do see some people freaking. There is some good news in regards to this. Thanks to the sheer age of the solar system and the universe, a lot of the stuff that could have hit us has already hit us, or hit something before us. Moon craters, not just for our moon, show the impact of previous asteroids. Planets have already been bombarded by the stuff floating about. So, while the chances aren't zero, they are fairly low. Also, we are a really small planet. Literally a pale blue dot, even before you leave the solar system. And damn near invisible, once you leave the solar system. My father's school did a guided tour through the woods, searching and learning about local herbs. A few years later, my father was still a child. Police showed up and asked him if he recognized the man in a picture that they showed him. My father explained that he was the herbalist tour guide. Apparently, the guy had murdered several boys and had my father's name and address in his car. The police had caught the guy by this point. I think he killed himself or died in suspicious circumstances. There are more cells in your body that belong to other things, like bacteria, fungi, viruses, and parasites, than actual human cells. Some are beneficial, some harmful, and most are just along for the ride. Also, we're riddled with microplastics, so that's fun too. Your brain chooses to ignore your nose. If it didn't, you would notice it in your point of view constantly. You only see it in your point of view when you want to see it. In addition to this, the veins in your eyeballs cast shadows into your vision, but because this is never new information, since they're always on the same spot, your brain omits it from view. But you can trick yourself into seeing them by making a pinhole with your fingers and looking at a bright spot, like the sky or a white monitor, and wiggling your hand around. This moves the shadows around, making it new info. The way you extract semen from a bull is by shoving a giant dildo up its ass and cranking that bitch to 11. I was told this by my dad, a vet, unprompted, while having a beer on the back porch with him one Thanksgiving. Thanks, Dad. Well, it's not as it seems. The dildo is actually a bipolar endorectal electrode that electrically stimulates the ejaculatory center, located in the spinal cord in the lumbar region, L1 L3. The ejaculation happens without an erection, and the semen is inferior, both in quality and quantity, so the main method being used is the one most people know about: get the bull excited by a female in estrus, get it to mount a mannequin, and place the penis in an artificial vagina that will collect the semen. I personally work on small animals, but never heard any colleague even mention that someone used the electrostimulation method. Tarantulas walk on water. That is actually so cool. Although, since you seem to find tarantulas menacing, it may comfort you to know that tarantulas can die from falling from only a few feet, so if you ever find a tarantula on you, just know that if you slap it off, it will 100% die. R.I.P. My science teacher had a tarantula once. A girl in my grade was holding it and dropped it about 4 feet. It died. The students made crosses and a rock as a tombstone for the tarantula, then he fed it to his salamander. Interesting stuff. Well, all of these make my flatworm titbit seem meek. When flatworms mate, two males use their bifurcated penises to fence one another. The winner, or the flatworm who stabs the other with its penis dagger, remains a male, while the loser becomes female and will be impregnated. Edit, to correct the meaning of bifurcated. They don't detach it. Bifurcated means split in two. Carl Tonsler fell in love with Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos, a young tuberculosis patient, at the Key West Hospital, where he was a radiology technician, but his fondness grew into an obsession after she died, in 1931. Tonsler lived with the corpse of the woman he loved for 7 years. When she started to decompose, he embalmed her body and stuffed her with cotton wool. When she was eventually discovered, he was asked at his trial if he ever consummated their relationship. He said no, but stuff was found in the cotton wool of her bathing suit area. Your immune system doesn't know your eyes exist. If it learned, it would identify them as foreign and try to destroy them. This is like half true. The eyes produce something that causes your immune system to ignore them, because when you get an infection, the first thing your immune system likes to do is cause inflammation and swelling at the area of the infection, so that whatever cells the immune system sends to fight the infection can travel around it easier. You don't want your eyes to swell, it would be very bad, so over the course of evolution, they developed a way to make sure the immune system ignores them. Also, a guy's crown jewels also get ignored, I think. There could be black holes traveling close to the speed of light, flying through the universe, ready to swallow anything in their way. The scary part is, they could be headed right for Earth, and we wouldn't notice it. The universe is so vast, and so much, also so little, in it there could possibly be a planet-shattering body, or a black hole, or something catastrophic, heading our way, right now. Naegleria fowleri. I now have a somewhat irrational fear of ponds or lakes. Not really a fact. I guess I just learned about the fact Naegleria fowleri exists. For people that want to know what it is, Naegleria fowleri, also known as the brain-eating amoeba, is a species of the genus Naegleria. It belongs to the phylum Percolozoa, and is technically classified as an amoeba flagellate excavate, rather than a true amoeba. This free-living microorganism primarily feeds on bacteria, but can become pathogenic in humans, causing an extremely rare, sudden, severe, and usually fatal brain infection, known as naegleriosis, or primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, PAM. It is typically found in warm freshwater bodies, such as lakes, rivers, hot springs, warm water discharge from industrial or power plants, geothermal well water, and poorly maintained or minimally chlorinated swimming pools, with residual chlorine levels under 0.5 milligram per cubic meter, water heaters, soil, and pipes connected to tap water. It can exist in either an amoeboid or temporary flagellate stage. When you are in the process of dying, the last part of your brain function to go is related to your hearing. Essentially, you can hear everything around you, but you're locked in. Whether you can comprehend it is for a person much smarter than me to answer. But imagine understanding that the people around you are mourning, and all you can do is listen. Or even worse, there's nobody. The bacterial spores of Bacillus cereus are in all rice varieties, and aren't destroyed when cooked, as the spores and toxin, which make you sick, are heat resistant. But they aren't active until your rice stays around room temperature for them to germinate. So, it's best to cool it down a bit, then immediately put it in the fridge. Also, don't reheat it more than once. Dying of dehydration is really painful. So, think about that next time you give yourself an opportunity to get stranded. I know that too well. Almost died of dehydration and infections when my appendix burst, and the hospital sent me home, saying it was gastro. My eyes rolled in the back of my head, while curled up, shaking uncontrollably, and constantly moaning in pain. I thought I was going to die. Way worse than any injury I've gotten. Fatal familial insomnia. Creepy disease that just don't let you sleep. You start seeing hallucinations till you die. This disease is hereditary, and you can't find symptoms. This disease destroying sleep cells, so you can't just take sleeping pills. There is a book about this disease, Family That Couldn't Sleep. This family was very big, and they watched how their children dies. Very creepy. Some members of the Mormon Church practice baptism by proxy for the unbaptized deceased, which they believe the deceased person may choose posthumously to accept, and thereby gain entry to heaven. Targets of this practice have included popes, U.S. founding fathers, the Buddha, Genghis Khan, and both victims of the Holocaust and Hitler. Vacuum decay. Theoretically, if some quantum tunneling event occurs in deep space, it can sort of unmake the physical laws of the universe, and it will just stop. This effect will spread out at superluminal speeds. This can occur in the same way a shadow can move faster than light, or the expansion of the universe itself can move faster than light. These dead areas are also invisible, as they, by their very nature, emit no radiation, absorb any that ventures in, and move so fast. The only way you know one was coming was that all the stars near you would all blink out in a matter of weeks. Vacuum decay is a terrifying concept. Fortunately, the jury is still out on whether it's actually possible, with most physicists agreeing that it's at least extremely unlikely. And if it is possible, then the chances of it actually happening within the timescale of the life of the universe are likely to be vanishingly thin. Our understanding of physics and universe is constantly evolving, though, so no one can say anything for sure. Pitești experiment in Romania, overseen by the Soviet Union. Probably the worst thing that humans have ever done to other humans. Makes Unit 731 look like daycare. Communist Russia was probably the most evil human organization to ever exist. It was basically an experiment to prove souls don't exist. That any human, no matter how resilient, can be broken, or demasked, into an animal-like slave. And they prove this by killing the human spirit with 24/7 torture, degradation, brainwashing and humiliation. Besides the obvious brutal violence stuff, like eating your own shit, vomit, and forced to desecrate every sacred belief you ever held, until you totally broke. And they did this to the most resilient anti-communist student activists. And they all broke. Then they forced them to be the torturers for their fellow comrades. With the threat that if any of the tortured admitted that they were the guard that shown them a shred of mercy or leniency, they would be sent back to the beginning of the program to experience it all again, which most did several times. If these prisoners were given even the slightest chance, they instantly tried to commit S. Some even chewed through their wrists to get to their veins, which the communists solved for by knocking out all of their teeth. One of the biggest mistakes the Western world made was not make the crimes of the Soviet Union more known. Everyone should know this happened, that yes, there was an organization of people much worse than even the Nazis. Most people do not know one of the reasons why AC electricity can kill you. In order to generate electricity, the power companies spin a magnet inside a coil of wire, or spin a coil around a magnet. The angular frequency that the coil or magnet is spun at is about 50 Hz to 60 Hz. More than 30 milliamperes of AC, RMS, 60 Hz, or 300 to 500 milliamperes of DC, at high voltage, can cause fibrillation, irregular heartbeat. Basically, AC current goes back and forth really fast, and can pump your heart for your brain, instead. Your brain thinks something else is pumping the heart for it, so it stops. Once you let go of the object you're being electrocuted by, the brain doesn't clue in to pump the heart again, because it thought something else was doing it. Scary. Very scary. Some of the victims of Pompeii may have taken up to 15 minutes to suffocate to death by inhaling the scalding hot pyroclastic ash and gases. Other victims died by having their skulls explode from the searing temperatures of the flows. There was also one poor dude they found who'd been basically incinerated in an instant while taking cover in bed. Pugs and other brachycephalic dogs can have their eyeballs just pop out of their skull. I have a story. My former roommate had a senior pug. One day, the pug sneezed, and his eye just kind of popped out, then completely nonchalantly, he was just like, "Oh yeah, that happens sometimes," and just took his knuckle and popped it right back in. Me and my partner at the time were like, "No, what the F, we need to talk about what just happened." And he explained something about how, because their faces are smashed, their eye sockets aren't quite right,